Wales, the outcrop of land off of the west of England. No, not Devon. There we are. Known not only for its abundance of sheep, mountains, and funny accent, but its deep, interesting history, varying from the strong Celtic warriors that once roamed these lands, to the coal pits and rise of industry in the country, pivotal to the progression of the whole of the UK through the 18th to 20th centuries. In this documentary, I want to talk about some of the history of this great nation, and how it came to be, and how it got to where it is today. And there is no place better to start the story than at the beginning. Our whole universe was in well, maybe not that far back. Not too much of Wales's earliest history is known. We do know, however, that the Wales that we all know and love today came into existence around 6000 BC. Humans have also been around for a long time. The oldest remains of a human-ish species are those of a Neanderthal, who is believed to have lived about 225,000 years ago. These remains were found in a cave called Pont Newydd Cave in the Elwy Valley, located in Denbighshire. This Stone Age beast called Bryn, probably, would have wielded advanced technologies such as sharp and blunt lumps of stone to go about his day-to-day life. Day-to-day life wasn't what it is today though, as it was shared with all sorts of exotic animals, including lions, bears, wolves and leopards. After Bryn ap Grug's time, people started to settle down and go from hunting and gathering to living off of agriculture. It was around 2300 before Common Era the first copper is thought to have been cast. Copper was used to make slightly more advanced tools than rock, but it was only 300 years later,
3 hours later,
that the more advanced alloy, bronze, was discovered. This was created by combining the already used copper and mixing it with tin, as well as creating tools such as basic axes, but also more sophisticated items like slashing swords and rapiers. After the Bronze Age came the Iron Age, and other than the obvious change in commonly used materials, was the change in weather, described as an age of heavy rain and strong wind by Geraint H. Jenkins in A Concise History of Wales. Not much has really changed since, by the look of things. Another highlight from the Iron Age are the hill forts. They made lots and lots of hill forts. Chances are, if you're in Wales, near a hill and or mountain, you are near what was once a hill fort.
What do you mean they're all dead?
The Celts died off 750 years ago. Surely you knew that.
What? How come? They were meant to be great warriors.
Well, yes, they were. However, they lived in smaller tribes, each with its own chieftain, rather than under one unified ruler. This meant that they were no match to the Roman legion when they came over in 43 CE, who were exactly that, a unified force. The Romans also outdid the Celts on the technology front. It was said that if war was a competition between opposing technologies, then the native tribes' equipment was the equivalent of training pea shooters against panzer divisions.
So what you're saying is, the Celts got absolutely wrecked because the Romans were smarter, hence why they're none here today.
Yes, and all that did happen over 3,000 years ago.
Let's go get a drink.
So the tribes did fall due to their technical disadvantage and lack of unification, but it could have also had something to do with the 40,000 troops Emperor Claudius sent over. Led by Caradog, as he came to be known in Welsh legend, the Siliers waged full-blown guerrilla warfare upon the Roman Empire, which lasted for 25 years. Caradog faced the Romans for 9 years before he met his final battle near Caio Caradog in 51 AD. He actually used a hill fort for defense in his legendary battle. He wasn't actually killed in battle, he fled to another tribe called the Brigantes. This was all well and good, but unfortunately the queen of the Brigantes, Cartimandua, was allied with the Romans, so handed him over to them wrapped in chains. After this point is when things start to go downhill for the Celts. The Romans more or less own Britain. There are still multiple signs of the Romans around today, most notably the massive straight roads they left on top of our hills. There are over 1,000 kilometres of these roads. The next stop along this particular stretch of road is Needham, or Neath. Not much of the Needham can be seen today, apart from a small part of the southwestern gateway, situated what is by now Neath Abbey Road. There is also the theatre on the Neath College campus, right next to where the fortress would have been, that has for obvious reasons been called the Needham Arts Centre. Some of the Welsh language also comes from the Romans, like pont, meaning bridge, which comes from the Latin pontus, and eglois, meaning church, derives from ecclesia. Several hundred years after the whole Roman fiasco, there was that whole other group of foreign invaders here to plunder and pillage for all we hold near and dear. Our Scandinavian friends, the Vikings. Back in around 793 AD, the first Vikings landed in Britain. They were hungry, desperate marauders who decided to make their own problems other people's by rolling up to their front doors, murdering everyone, and taking their stuff. Thankfully, when compared to the other countries in the British Isles, Wales didn't get it too bad. This is probably because we were the most protected furthest away from Scandinavia. There were, however, some Vikings who settled in Wales, and one of the dead giveaways from this are the place names. For example, Milford and Fishguard. Swansea is also said to have been a product of the Vikings, when Sweyn Forkbeard got shipwrecked there on the bay. North Wales is home to some tragic Viking stories. In 987, the Vikings laid siege onto Anglesey and took 2,000 men and sold them into slavery. This was a big deal at the time, when you consider that the total population probably wasn't much more than this, meaning the Vikings pretty much took a whole island of men. Few things are more devastating than Mufasa's death in The Lion King, but the Black Death does cut it pretty close. For some, it marks the end of the Middle Ages due to how much everything changed before and during this era. It was October 1347 when a group of sailors with sickness clinging to their bones entered the port of Medina in Sicily. No one knew the devastating consequences of the disease. These damned souls were brought back with them from the east. The diseases made its way into Britain so quickly through the rats on board of the boats. The whole of the Western world got absolutely devastated by the plague, with over 25 million people being killed between 1347 and 1351. That is over half the population at the time. The Welsh's name for this tragedy was Y Farwolaeth Fawr, translating to the Great Morality. And in great morality they were, with over a quarter of Wales's population being wiped clean out. The close-knit town of Holywell had virtually all of its lead miners wiped out. It took Wales many, many years to recover from the aftermath of the Black Death.
Where is everyone?
Did you not hear? The plague came back and killed everyone off.
What? How did I not hear about this?
Probably because you were too busy off looking at hill forts up in the mountains.
A man's got to have his hobbies. Anyway, how did this plague spread?
Well, there are three forms of the plague: bubonic, pneumonic, and septicemic. Bubonic plague would spread through fleas and insects that would inhabit small animals like rats, and was the best plague as it has a 50% mortality rate. Pneumonic and septicemic was a different ballgame completely. With a 90% mortality rate, you were almost guaranteed Gary Goner. Even this, though, was nothing compared to that of septicemic plague, which had a 100% rate of death of those who got it.
How would I know if I had the Black Death inside of me?
Well, bubonic targets the lymph nodes, leading to swelling in the armpits and groin, as well as other common flu symptoms like a high fever, achy limbs, etc. Pneumonic, on the other hand, attacks the lungs, so it can lead to cardiopulmonary failure, as well as deadly chest pain.
What about septicemic? What does that do?
That one targets the blood, and can often follow up from the bubonic plague. Pretty much everything bad that can happen to your body happens with this one, with it ending with all your own internal organs shutting down. A big physical sign of septicemic plague is necrosis in the nose, hands and toes, basically causing you all to go black and crusty like Dumbledore in the Half-Blood Prince.
Cool.
Hey, what's that on your hands?
Nothing.
Oh dear.
If you have ever even thought about looking into Welsh independence and or revolution, you will have heard of Owain Glyndŵr. For most of his life, Glyndŵr was a perfectly good, law-abiding citizen. In about 1400, everything changed for Glyndŵr as he got into a dispute with his next-door neighbour. The whole argument was over where their garden fence started and who owned what land. Because of this dispute, his neighbour Reginald Grey neglected to tell Glyndŵr of a summons from the king, who wanted Owain's help. This then made it look like he committed treason by pieing the king off. The king's response then, when Glyndŵr and Grey brought their complaint higher up, was, "What care we for these barefoot rascals?" Basically meaning, lol, I don't care, they're poor people problems. This upset Owain, so he decided to launch a full-scale revolt against the people in charge. And in September of 1400, his supporters proclaimed him Prince of Wales. Another notable achievement of Glyndŵr was the capture of Aberystwyth Castle. This castle is still partially here today, however, over the years has fallen into severe disrepair. This mass revolt only went on until 1412, when everything calmed down. The next year, Henry IV died anyway, meaning Henry V took his place, who wasn't really bothered on what had happened in the revolution, so everybody got offered a pardon. Owain Glyndŵr actually cameoed in Shakespeare's Henry IV. However, since Shakespeare struggled with actual English at times, there was no hope really when spelling Glyndŵr, so he is referred to as Glendower. Looking at more recent history, Wales was useful for one thing, its industry in mines. A country previously poor was now starting to thrive. These products had already been mined, even dating back to the Bronze Age. However, the rapid industrialisation and advancements in technologies meant it was now on a whole new level. More than just metal and fuel was extracted from the mines and quarries, there was also another major resource extracted from the Welsh mountains, and that was slate. Perfect for building houses and roofs, capable of withstanding the harsh Welsh weather, slate was a very fast expanding industry. To learn more about the smooth layered rock, I visited the National Slate Museum up in Snowdonia, and trust me, there was a lot of slate.
Slate. Slate.
Slate. Slate. Slate. Slate.
Slate. Slate.
Slate.
Slate. Oh, slate. Lots of slate.
Whilst industry was blooming at this time, the living and working condition of workers were not so much. Living in these cramped, damp, morbid conditions was perfect for all kinds of germs and bacteria. In just 1 year, 1,800 lives were lost to cholera, a disease that literally makes you diarrhea yourself to death. A huge proportion of how Wales got to where it is today is because of the coal mining industry. Coal burns a lot hotter and for longer than wood, meaning upon it being available for the masses, it swiftly replaced wood as a main source of fuel. Now I'm quite bored of mindlessly dropping statistics of how much of something was made, so here's a bunch of coal, so a lot of it was dug up. One of the many risks that came with digging underground was running across gas leaks. 1 minute everything is fine, the next, boom, everyone's dead. That was until this legend came along. Humphrey Davy, who made the Davy lamp. These told the miners when there was methane gas present. From this point in history, people started to pull things together a bit more. Things went from arguing with your neighbour led to a full-blown national revolution to democratically working things out over debates and time. It all became a case of political parties, Labour this, Conservatives that, and the rise of modern democracy. However, what happened next was in no way democracy, or even humane for that matter.
Ah, I'm feeling so much better. Thank God for the vaccines.
I know, and you only lost 2 toes.
Oh, Potty Boy, I can smell you from here.
You won't be smelling nothing when I'm done with you.
Whoa, 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 whoa. We do not do that here. This is the modern age. We have a legal system now. You can't go attacking people for small reasons.
Ah, I'm sorry, my bad.
Actually, never mind. You've been drafted off to war. See you later.
Wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. But you just said...
No, it's fine if your government tells you to do it.
14 years after moving into the new century, 272,924 Welshmen were recruited to fight overseas in what would become known as the Great War. In a number of places, such as Britain Ferry, virtually every eligible man went to fight. People in power motivated men by reminding them of the country's history defending itself against invaders. All of the women who were left behind had to step up and keep the country running by themselves. This was a crucial point in change for women in society in Britain.
Ah, thank God I survived the war to end all wars. That will never happen again. Ah, for
Why only have one world war when you can have two? Turns out the Germans weren't done with losing to us yet.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
So came back for round 2, this time with the Blitz and some horrific crimes against humanity. Wales, thankfully, was very well informed as to what to do when enemy officers were casually driving past them through the streets of Swansea, even if their friend happened to be driving. This is thanks to the leaflets that were handed out to the populace that read, "If you happen to be standing in a ditch or behind a tree or some other position of safety, and you have some kind of grenade or bomb in your hand, and a car comes along with enemy officers, driven even by your best friend, you must let them have it. It is what your friend would want you to do." Just like everywhere else, the important industrial areas were primarily targeted in the Blitz. Places hit notably hard include Pembroke Dock, Cardiff and Swansea. Swansea suffered the most though, with the whole of the city centre and its surrounding areas being flattened. The glow from the fire was so intense that you could actually see it from Devon across the channel. Obviously, all that damage led to loss of life, with 230 people killed and over 400 injured.